all. I wanted to talk about the story The Leader of the People by John Steinbeck. This is actually a story from the book The Red Pony, and this is an episodic novella that has stories about a boy named Jody and his life on his father's California ranch. What's interesting is the main theme of The Leader of the People ties in with Frederick Jackson Turner's frontier thesis. Turner was an American historian during the 20th century and was considered one of the three most influential historians in America. But he's mostly known for his frontier thesis. He argued that the moving western frontier influenced American democracy and the American character. So he's basically saying that America defined itself against the frontier it had yet to conquer. And this story is talking about that idea. Now, it fits in well, the frontier thesis fits in well with John Steinbeck's writing, because Steinbeck used the American West often as the subject of his fiction. And in this story, Steinbeck's theme is centering on the passing of the frontier. And with it, this American heroic age is coming to an end. And that end is represented by the grandfather in the story. So the grandfather lived during that time. He led a wagon train across the Great Plains. He was the leader of the people. And he said he was uncertain of the purpose of the adventure, but that they moved for movement's sake and for adventure. And that was a very important time to him. He likes to tell stories about it because it's good memories for him. So he clings to that, much like Americans cling to the heroic memories of the West that we have. You can see how that permeates even now. Our media, we have stories about the Wild West. We have movies. This idea is very romantic, and it has become part of our national identity in ways, part of our culture. And this was kind of what was happening as people moved westward. They were discovering new places, settling in different territories, and in the process defining what America meant, what it looked like. This was also part of regionalism, because the people back east who were not pushing westward were very interested in what people were discovering, what the areas were like, what the cultures came to be like. And so when writers were penning these tales about the West, they were launching into deep descriptions of these things, because that was really something on people's minds. They wanted to know what this discovery was about. So here's a quote from the grandfather. He says, "It wasn't Indians that were important, nor adventures, nor even getting out here. It was a whole bunch of people made into one big crawling beast. And I was the head. It was westering and westering. When we saw the mountains at last, we cried, all of us. But it wasn't getting here that mattered. It was movement and westering. The westering was as big as God, and the slow steps that made the movement piled up until the continent was crossed. Then we came down to the sea, and it was done." So you can imagine they are going on this grand adventure. Hardships and all kinds of tales have come from this. And then they reach the ocean, and they realize their adventure is over and that they need to settle down. So the grandfather really focuses on this glorious time of his life. But on the opposite end of the scale is Carl Tiflin, who thinks that the grandfather's stories are a waste of time. He needs to get things done around the ranch, and he's more pragmatic. He's practical. He doesn't want to listen to his father's stories, or he doesn't value the idealism that his grandfather holds about that time. So it's kind of interesting, the interplay between these two characters, because what Steinbeck's trying to do is suggest that we as readers could easily become like Carl and become so pragmatic that we lose our sense of adventure. We no longer have this physical frontier to conquer. The adventure of the West doesn't exist like it did in that time period, and it would be very easy for us to forget and dismiss the adventure and the glory of westering. So a very interesting look at the time period, and I look forward to seeing what you have to say about this on the discussion board.